AI for campaigns. We're excited to see you. You may have seen that the little meeting is being recorded. Guy came on. Surprise, the session will be recorded. We are going to email it out to you tomorrow. So you will have it to have and to hold to reference forever and ever till death do you part. And there's another duplicate slide. That's the title slide for the recording. So we're going to trim it. Dun, 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 dun. This is us. Ben Resnick has been mysteriously sharing screen, mysteriously chiming in. You're going to hear from him in a second, but he's the Chief Strategy Officer at Social Current. And I am Jess Weldon. I am the Director of Training Programs here at Arena. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Sync Collective now. So Arena is an organization that is in a collective of organizations, as the name implies, all working to deliver persistent democratic majorities. And our focus is on recruiting, developing, retaining, and deploying exceptional talent, as well as arming them with the critical and emerging skills needed to win. So we're excited to have you here today. Just a few housekeeping notes before we jump into the good stuff. Like I mentioned, this session is going to be recorded. So we're going to email that out to you tomorrow. You already have access to the slides, and we're going to drop those in the chat right now. So you can see the handout that accompanies the slides as well, and you can kind of follow along so you don't need to be like trying to take notes on every single thing that's said. We are going to send you the recording, the slides, you have the handout, your bases are covered. As we move through, when you have a question, because you will have questions, go ahead and drop that question in the Q&A function. You can ask questions, and you can also open up the questions tab and upvote or give a little thumbs up to the one that you want us to answer first, so that we know what order to kind of answer the questions in. If you don't see that Q&A function right now, go ahead and click in your Zoom on the little three dots that say more. And when you open that window up, there's a little like question mark that's above a Q&A. That is the Q&A window. And last but not least, please share your feedback. We're really excited to be providing trainings and services for people that they use in their day-to-day at work. So if there are any additional materials that you'd like to see, we're always happy to help compile them for you. Just tell us in your feedback survey at the end of the session. And we're almost there. We'll quickly talk about norms. If you have been to an Arena training before, this slide must look very familiar, but just want to ground us in our norms of respectfully empowering and including everyone in the conversation. Please make sure this is an interactive session. We hope that you can be present and participate fully in conversations. This is not a webinar. This is a time for us to be in community and conversing with each other. So we're excited for the breakout rooms and for the chat to be a lively space where we're exchanging ideas. On that same note, we encourage you also to make space and take space. Just be mindful of how you participate. If you find yourself coming off of mute a lot, maybe wait a few seconds before you raise your hand, before you unmute yourself, to give other people an opportunity to speak up. Or if you find that we're approaching the halfway point and you haven't contributed anything yet, we encourage you to kind of step out of your comfort zone, take up a little bit more space, ask a question. You can be safe to ask your question because learning leaves, but stories stay. So we will periodically pause the recording, especially for Q&A time, so you can have an opportunity to ask those questions and to interact in a way that is going to be a little bit more off the record. And I've already mentioned the feedback survey. This won't be the last time you hear about it, but we do appreciate those. And last but not least, please be on video as much as you can. We really appreciate the opportunity to put faces to names. We love being in community with you. That is my favorite part about working at Arena. And it is a kindness to our trainers and our community as well. It helps us to understand how things are landing. It's a way for you to communicate feedback with the trainer in real time. So we really do appreciate being on video and participating as much as possible. And with that, those are all of our norms, and I'm excited to introduce our maestro for today, Ben Resnick. Ben, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, everybody. I am Ben Resnick. I am not a maestro, but is the Chief Strategy Officer at Social Current, which is one of the leading creator strategy and marketing firms in democratic politics and advocacy. I'm also a Zinc Collective alum and a longtime Arena stan. I wrote Zinc Collective's AI guidance in the 23-24 cycle, and I'm really excited to be back. I am going to quickly run through the agenda. We're doing intros right now. We're going to talk about the basics of AI. We're going to do a break. Then we're going to dive in deeper into the risks and the opportunities and how those two get balanced against each other. We're going to spend a good chunk of time talking about what this looks like in practice, not just in theory. And then we will land with next steps. So I'm going to really try to fly through the parts where I am talking. To make sure that people have an opportunity to share their own opinions and ideas. And yeah, if I am going through things too quickly, I'm almost certain that I will be. I strongly encourage you to use the Q&A. And we're going to reserve time at the end to dig into anything further, and we'll share some resources as well. So enough about me. Let's hear about you. I'd love to hear who's in the room. I think we're about to pull up a Zoom poll to hear a little bit about what departments folks are in, and things like that coming in real time. There's actually two questions to this, so I'm excited to share.
Excited to get close to 100% turnout if
I
we can.
believe in us. We're up to 26, 30. We're past the 1/3 mark.
Wow.
Doing amazing, y'all. We're past the 1/2 mark. I am
We're getting
amazed.
into presidential levels of turnout at this point.
Yes, indeed. Um, we're almost to 3/4. I'm going to give it another 10 seconds or so.
We believe in
Um,
you. Please vote.
yes, use your voice.
You're helping us make the breakout rooms for later,
Yes,
also.
actually, this is not just interesting. This is actually helpful. So if you have not yet voted, this is your last chance.
That's all they needed. They just needed to know
Yes,
why we needed them to vote. Okay.
it's true. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. Bim bam boom. Share results. We've got a bunch of campaign managers, strong communications, data, digital breakdown, a lot of political team, and a good smattering of all the departments, which is great. It looks like we have a fairly AI familiar group, which is great. Folks are using it occasionally to sometimes. The largest chunk is regularly, which is really interesting. So that's very helpful for me. I will make sure to cover those basics so we're all starting from the same starting point. And then we can dig into, what is going to be the most helpful. With that, let's dive into that starting point and the most basic question. What is this thing? What is generative AI? I would love for folks to share if you were to describe generative AI to your grandmother, in a sentence or so, what is the way that you would describe it?
Deceptively simple question.
Yes. It's weird. We've been living with this thing for a couple of years now, and yet it's still really hard to define, eh? Helps you create better verbiage. Nice.
There's an SAT word.
Yeah. $10 word right there. Any other stuff that folks would add here? Digital collaborator with no ego. No ego. I like that's a useful frame. Okay, lots of talks about conversation here. All
Oh, we're
right,
getting
Robert, you're
into
onto
more
something.
technical. Yeah.
Yes. Great tool for understanding complex documents in plain language. Tool you can converse with to learn, build, and organize. That's actually a really nice description. We should make a note of that. That's worth holding on to. Cool. Okay, we could do this all day. So I'm going to move on. The way that I think of generative AI in a term is a plausibility machine. Generative AI is essentially a pattern matching tool that uses the entire internet and all the books ever written as its source of data, identifies patterns in that data, the ways that ideas are connected, the way that sentences flow, things like that. Um, and uses those patterns to pull out the right data or what it believes to be the right data in response to the messages you ask. Um, Again, the critical piece here is it will respond to requests based on the information it has available and the context you give it. That is really, really important. It is essentially blind. It is blinkered outside of the information that it has available and the context that you choose to provide on top of that. So understanding the nature of that information and being thoughtful in your context is really important. Um, okay, that's great. We just spent a couple of information, a couple of minutes talking about the basics of generative AI. But follow-on question: who cares? Like, why are we here? Why are you giving nearly 2 hours of your time on a Thursday afternoon to listen to some guy talk about generative AI? I think that there are two elements here. There is, first of all, the audience, you all. You're actually more than the audience. We are still just a few years from the initial launch of ChatGPT, which blew up the entire generative AI conversation. We are still really early in the game, and even earlier in how generative AI applies to campaigns. And that means that you all, the people who are choosing to think about this, to talk about this, to work with it, you have more power to define how it's used, how it's not, why and why not, than anyone else will ever again. More than the people working next cycle, more than the people working next generation, even more than yourself a few months down the line. This is the moment where the norms are set. What is acceptable and not, what is a good idea and not, is really established. And that's really the other point. It is not, it's you and this moment. This is when we set the patterns that subsequent people will follow. That's a heavy load, but it is kind of a privilege. And I'm really excited to think through the implications of that here with y'all. So, um, back onto the ideas of basics. I'm going to quickly cover some ground about like what's available and the terms and some of the major developments that have happened in the past couple of years. First of all, this is the piece you probably heard the most about. There are a bunch of different generative AI tools. The most common ones out there for doing work are ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini by Google, and Notebook LM, which we will actually play with. I'm not going to go into the details of any of these. The important thing to take away is one, they have both free and paid versions for all of these, and it is absolutely essential that you use the paid versions, and I'll go into why later. And two, some of these are going to be better or worse at some things than others, but at this point, every tool kind of converges on the major things it can do and the quality of those components. So that's sort of the major takeaway here. Um, Beyond those absolute basics, like I said, it's been just a couple of years, just a few years since ChatGPT came out, but there have been colossal changes in the past few that are worth knowing about if you haven't already. First of all, we have moved from like the most basic, you give an input, you get an output, to what's known as reasoning models. The bottom line is a reasoning model. I'll actually show you an example of this in a bit. Take some extra time and resources, what's known as tokens, to develop a better answer, pull in more research instead of just being like instinctive, fast twitch input and response. That means that the sorts of stuff you can do with these models has gotten more complex, has gotten more quote unquote thoughtful, though I cannot emphasize enough, these tools do not think. Um, but it means that the resources, the output is getting better. The other major thing is the development of what are known as AI agents. If you think about like ChatGPT when it first came out, that was at best what you might call, a coworker, right? Like you or a co-creator of written content. But ultimately, it was about producing an output that lives there in the tool. The difference between that and an AI agent is AI agents are built to actually go out into the world and do things. They are built to engage with APIs, which is the language that tools use to speak to each other. They are designed to work over long periods of time and actually solve problems they run into. So AI agents sort of break out of the box, so to speak, and do more advanced stuff. And combined with reasoning models, they've gotten extremely capable even over the past 6 months. So certainly not all powerful. And the last is that as these frontier models, as they're known, the ChatGPTs and Claudes of the world have grown, there has also been growth in specialized tools. Here's a few. Are you overwhelmed? You probably should be. This is a already couple of years old look at some of the tools in democratic politics and advocacy that use or incorporate AI. So yeah, that's it's a big thing. So, whoops, didn't mean to click. So with that, let's actually play with these things. I know that a lot of people on this call have had the opportunity to use these tools already, but I think that it's worth sort of actually thinking through. So go ahead and go to one of these of your choice. If you don't have a paid subscription to any of these, that's fine for now, though again, later I will talk about why you need the paid version. Go to the chatbot of your choice. And we are going to play with this real quick. So I'm going to share a different screen if I can figure out how. I'm going to stop sharing. And now, hello, everybody.
You're doing
I am
great.
going to share this screen. So, first of all,
Nailed it.
this I happen to thank you. I happen to be a user of Claude, which is used by Anthropic, and we are going. I have used it to. I've simply asked it to give me a summary of the Save Act. A couple of things I want to flag here. First of all, it is answering the question for itself of what it means to give a summary of the Save Act. It understands that it needs to research information and then output that information. Then it is doing web searches, and you can actually see what the specific searches were that it pulled and the results that it looked into. It realized that the Save Act is not actually necessarily law. It found that recent news about it being blocked, and then it gave a summary of what it is, the key provisions, legislative history, filibuster, whether people like it or why people like it or don't, and where it stands today. I'm curious if other folks did this, what they found, what they saw as helpful or not so helpful in their own summaries. What are folks seeing? What are folks' responses to this? Go ahead and drop anything that you are thinking about in the chat.
So, Ben, did you upload the Save Act or did you just tell it to summarize it?
I actually just told it to summarize the Save Act, and it realized that it did not have um, it didn't have access to it, although you can drop it in. And so it went and researched and found it itself, and you can actually see it went to govtrack.us, which is a respected source of bills, and pulled that language up. So yeah, comprehensive, nice breakdowns, nicely organized. Yeah, I think that this is a pretty satisfactory result. But this is a what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 word question, and you got a pretty decent standard, useful, I would argue, response. But the thing is, and here I am switching back to my other share, which we all know lives here. Resume. Here we are. Yes. So yeah, pretty solid for a few seconds typing, right? But the thing is, these tools can be improved. And one of the most useful tools at your disposal is the idea of a prompt. That is the question that is asked. I'm going to really fly through this, but things that you can do, ask it to take on a certain role. So think about its priorities in that way. Be specific about what you're trying to do, for whom, in what order, what it should look like for it to, what a successful output looks like, and what context, examples, references it wants to bear in mind. This is all really important because, as I said, generative AI is a plausibility machine. So all of the context and additional detail you provide it narrows down the set of information that it should be working with, to come up with a better definition of a plausible response. So now I'm going to hop back to the screen and I'm going to show you a different prompt I did. This one, as you can tell, is a lot longer. And what it says is, I help lead a nonprofit that helps people vote. I work in Georgia's second congressional district in the Black Belt. I said that instead of I'm a campaign manager to avoid any politics flags, lol. Research the demographics, economics, voter behavior, then research the SAVE Act, then give me a summary about what specific parts of the SAVE Act are likeliest to make it hard for the people I serve to vote. I want to give this to my boss. She likes scannable bullet points and pithy pullouts, so format it like that. You can see, comparing what I just said about what makes a prompt effective. I gave it a specific task. I said specifically who it's for. I gave it a specific sequence of what to research in what order. I told it what format I wanted. And I gave it context of like what it looks like for that output to be successful. As you can see, it has a bunch of really thorough research, right? That's the piece I want to pull out here. It's researching the district, it is researching the broader context, then it's researching the SAVE Act. It is consolidating everything that it has found. It's quote unquote thinking to itself about what all of this means for the context of my question. And then it puts together a actually like specially formatted policy brief, specifically for me. And as you can see, we have our scannable bullets. We have a district snapshot. We have our pithy pullouts. We have a description of the SAVE Act. And then we dive into exactly what is relevant in the SAVE Act for my specific constituents. And it breaks down who even the constituents are that are directly relevant here. It understands that the Black Belt is a historically lower income district with a disproportionately high share of Black folks who have lived there for a very, very long time, and the special structural barriers to in the SAVE Act. It ends with, I think, a really effective quote from the National Urban League, and gives a really strong summary. I would argue this is a lot more helpful than the previous search, even though the first search was fine. This allows you to really tailor what you are doing. So I'm going to stop, and that's the last time that I'm going to jump between shared screens. I also see there are questions in the chat, and I would encourage you to, again, one, share that in the Q&A, and two, let's plan to bring this to the breakouts because it's all really, really important. So moving on, beyond prompting basics, there's other things you can do. You can adjust your personalization settings. These tools have stuff that they call memory, which is, persistent context and information. Doing a back and forth makes it a really useful thought partner, and telling it what's working and not is another powerful tool that you have at your disposal. Cool. All right. So yeah, I just did this. So I would
Sure.
encourage you
Yeah.
all to go ahead and do this. In the interest of time, I am going to sort of fly through the next couple of slides, but if this inspired you, we don't need to share all the responses, but if anybody feels moved by this, I'd love for you to share in the chat what sorts of changes or improvements or things you find useful in getting more effective responses out of these tools. This is the part where we are beginning to move from me talking at you for a long time to knowledge sharing. And that's the piece that I am by far the most excited about. So yeah, as I go on, please share in the chat what you found helpful and effective. Oh, I see that Polk's actually shared more details. That's fantastic. Um, so yeah, the bottom line here is this is the beginning of a conversation, not the end. And with tools like this, um, you want to iterate. You want to explore. This is one of those technologies where curiosity is your greatest resource. See if it can do what you want it to do within defined bounds that we will get to. So now I want to dive further into like what makes this actually useful. I hopefully what we're seeing here is we are making a transition from like basics to like cool slash scary to like actually useful in our lives, which is the point here. You may not be doing stuff that's relevant to the Save Act right now. Hopefully, it is dead as a doornail and you never have to think about it again. But what you've seen here is this is a really broadly, generally applicable tool, and the problem is it's sort of the paradox of choice. There's choice paralysis. There's too many things to do with this tech. Um, the best thing that you can do is not try to take AI and throw it at everything, but to work backwards from the problems that you actually have, and then figure out which problems are best suited for AI to make your life easier. The best way to do that is think about the nature of the challenges that you have that are time consuming, that are repetitive, that are mechanical, that get you stuck in early stages, and that generally would free you up to be more engaged and more thoughtful in the most human parts of your work. I would love to encourage folks to drop examples of how they are currently, like the problems that they are solving with AI. And how in the chat right now. And also start thinking about this for the breakout groups, because this is the essential piece. Here's some more ideas. I don't need to beat this to death. But clearly situations where there is a good amount of data, a good amount of context, and a well-defined goal output, really helpful. I think that we can share, Jess. I think that we can share these ideas out as we go, so as not to belabor this too terribly much. Speaking of Jess, do you want to hop on and talk to us about this Notebook LM point?
Yeah, let's perhaps do this after the breakout, maybe when we
Cool.
come back. But I do just want to let you know that there is another tool that is a little bit different than the other ones. You can check it out, arena.fyi/AI notebook if you'd like to. And we're going to drop that in the chat. And what this one is a place to kind of upload your own sources, but it's not going to pull from the internet. So what you can do is say, okay, in this example, I uploaded a collective bargaining agreement and an employee handbook. And I wanted to make an employee hub where employees could come and ask, what time off do I have coming up this month or whatever? When are our holidays? But I actually found that my employee handbook was not up to date with the collective bargaining agreement and decided I should update my employee handbook to match the collective bargaining agreement. And so this was a really safe environment for me to do that in because I'm the only person that has access to this. And the people that I share it with, it's not going anywhere. And it's only pulling from these two resources to answer my questions. It's not pulling from outside sources. So it's not really getting polluted with a ton of extra data. So there are options beyond just the regular like chatbots that you're used to interacting with, and we can use them safely and securely, which we'll talk about in the second section.
Yes. Speaking of that, I think we're going to dive into our first independent work practice, if this is the right moment. So yeah, the where things are going to go for the next half an hour or so is starting to move from theory to practice here. So I would love to encourage folks to spend the next 10 minutes just independently in your own hearts with your own notebook. Let's start problem solving. Let's identify what are the tasks that you do on a daily or weekly basis that meet the criteria that we were talking about a second ago? What is time consuming? What is repetitive? What is mechanical? Where are you staring at a blank page for a long time? And most critically, what are the sorts of tasks that stand between you and the work you actually want to be doing? Um, of those, let's pick a task that is well suited for AI to solve. Generally, a lot of there's context and information that is available. There is a pretty good, like, you can define success well, and it is safe for you to go back and forth and give some feedback. Um, and think through how you might be able to use what we've been talking about so far to make your life easier on that specific workflow. And then if you want, you can go ahead and try it. Though I will say, if your workflow involves private or proprietary data, don't do this part. Don't do it. Actually, you can say, make up some data for this workflow and then use it on that, and it'll make up data. AI is great at making things up, lol. And see how well it goes. And then after this, we are going to, there's a handout that will help you explain this, and then we're going to move into a breakout. Where we can share these ideas with each other, see what themes come up, see what's helpful. So, Deborah, do we have the full 10 minutes to do this, or should we shorten the brainstorming piece?
Let's spend 5 on the
And
brainstorming.
five. Okay. So let's go until 38 minutes past the hour. Oh, I thought we are going to be able to set up a timer for this. Um, uh, Go and sit and write. Feel free to start chatting about this in the chat, and then we are actually going to pull into groups and explore this a little bit more together. With that, I'm going to go on mute so you don't have to listen to my voice anymore for now. And I'm looking forward.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, sorry, Jess, do you want to talk about the
No,
handout
I
piece
was
real
going to
quick?
say, just if you want to stay on that, there's places for you in your handout to do the brainstorm, to narrow your list. And then the discussion guide is down below that. So if you want to look ahead, kind of see what we're going to be talking about, that is an option for you.
Yes, I will leave this slide up, and I'm looking forward to moving forward and chatting more with folks in the next 5 minutes. All right. I believe that is 5 minutes. Cool. I hope that everybody had a productive moment of introspection, thinking about their work life and how AI can may or may not fit into it. Um, let's let's talk about it. Jess, I assume we've got the full 15 minutes for this. Um,
We'll call it 13, but
We'll call it,
yes,
all right, 13. Fantastic. So yeah, we're going to move into breakout groups. I believe that folks are going to be auto assigned, and uh, in your group, we're going to discuss what you do in your life that might be well suited to AI and why. Um, how AI can be used to make your life easier on those specific tasks. If you have any questions related to using AI for work or best practices, I'm sure there's a bunch of those. And I want to add one more. If these things were taken off your plate, what would you do with that time? How would you better do the work? How would you better serve your community and the movement? What is actually the benefit to your life of being more efficient and effective here, besides just efficiency for its own sake? With that, 13 regular minutes takes us to 2:53. So I will stop sharing my screen and the Zoom wizards can move us into our breakout groups.
Okay, Myra,
Are we ready?
you're the wizard. You tell
Okay,
me.
I'm gonna open the rooms. You all will pop into a breakout room with about six other people, and we can screen share those prompts into your screen into your breakout rooms. See y'all in 12-ish minutes.
I'm gonna pause the recording.
All right. Hello, hello, hello. How are we doing? Jess, how are we doing on attendees? When should I kick back off?
We still have folks in breakout rooms, so give it like, I don't know, 10 seconds or so.
Cool. I will give it a 10 count.
Okay, my friends, I'm going to be muting you with love. It is with all of the love in my heart that when you come back from breakout rooms, sometimes you're off mute, and we love that for you, but there's a lot of us, so
No
I'm
doubt.
sorry.
Well, hi, everybody. I hope those breakout sessions were interesting. I really want to hear about them. So we're going to spend some period of time. Jess, you tell me how long on a debrief. Where I'm going to hand the mic to folks who want to speak with the full group. Jess, how long, or Deborah, how long do we have?
Let's do like 5-ish here, so we have a little bit of time for Q&A.
Cool, that sounds good. I'm going to say 6, so it's exactly 3 o'clock. Cool. Okay. Tossing the mic into the air. Who wants to share? And please use the hand raise function. Who wants to share what came up in the conversation? I'm super interested. What themes? What seemed particularly useful? Masha, you just put out an awesome summary. Do you want to come off mute and talk through what you found really quick?
Yeah, I mean, and I'd love folks from our room to chime in because this is really just the main points that came up in our go around. But one was the use of AI for data tracking and campaigns, um, understanding what can be done with turf, and really to what extent can we understand even the turf that we're working with AI, how best to make use of AI's ability to manage spreadsheets. I think that again is related to the data piece, but like I think really what can be done with data and spreadsheets. Um, there was a question as well around how up-to-date models are in providing us with insights around local, for example, local politics. Someone, I think Gina was mentioning results that were just inaccurate or old. And so how can we address that? And then similarly, how to make sure that the data we're getting or the results we're getting are accurate.
Right on. Really good stuff. Let me call on Peyton and a couple more folks, and then we can start to identify some themes. Peyton, over to you.
Yeah. So we sort of hit on a few of the similar points there, but we kind of, I think, landed on this idea that there's a bit of a tier system when it comes to using AI.
Mhm.
Well, at the bottom tier, like the stuff it can do very well, you have sort of like big data, analysis, right? These really rote, repetitive tasks that do not take a lot of brain power, but take a lot of time. But as you go further up and you get into more kind of people specific stuff, right? People management, direct communication, AI really still struggles at that. I think we've all had to deal with AI assistants, right? AI chatbots, in a variety of contexts. It never feels good interacting with those. And so from a campaign context, that's kind of an area where it's a lot more difficult to integrate AI in a way that, feels respectful of the people you're actually interacting with.
That's a really important point that I want to highlight. Generative AI is going to get better with time. It already has, notably in just the past few months, but there's going to be some things that AI should never do, regardless of whether it can do. And here I really think about the distinction between like what is mechanical and what are the things you would be doing with your time if you were granted more time. That second set is a lot of the most important work in campaigns and movement building and organizing and working with people and relationships. And it should always be protected, in my opinion. Brandon, let me hand it over to you.
Yeah, so overall, just kind of similar themes. I tried to touch on where I'm completely unfamiliar with is just like the integration of systems. I think it was in the chat already here, like AI understanding vote builder, right? I think where I would get stuck is just like, okay, like there's systems that we use, vote builder and a lot of Excel and spreadsheets that have like a lot of like these repetitive tasks that take time, but not a lot of brain power. But like, I can't just go to AI. Again, just as a normal the way I'm thinking, but I can't just go to AI and say like, do this because I think it requires some, I assume, like integration of systems in order for it to kind of understand what you're looking for, and then like to execute on it. Like, if I'm tracking a field program and like keeping track of the 87 turfs that were knocked over the weekend, instead of entering those, I mean, how is it going to know where to pull from to do that process for me?
Yeah, absolutely. On the vote builder stuff, I think that there are product updates coming from the NGP Van team in the coming weeks that may be relevant to that. So keep an eye on your various channels. In the interest of time, Isai, do you think you can fit your update into 1 minute?
Sure. Yeah, so our group we talked and I really don't use it that much. I'm not too familiar with it. So I was just kind of asking the group, what their thoughts, what their insight was on the whole AI aspect things. And so I talked with one of a data person. She said she would look into the agents and also like the scale file of the agents, so that you're able to basically delegate that work to them. And then also another thing, working with co-work with Claude. So those key things. And then yeah, she was also talking about like how she created an app and all these things. So it was kind of interesting. I was curious already. So yeah, definitely gonna look into those things. And that was basically what our group conversation was about.
Right on. Thank you. Yeah, I just want to pull out that a skill is basically a set of context in a box, like sort of cliff notes for whatever tool you're using, that can make it better or more guided on performing a specific task. So skills are actually something you can develop. It's literally just a text file. So yes, great stuff. Eric, I'm so sorry we are at time for this section, but we are going to we're actually going to skip the Q&A for now, and we're going to move that to the end. We're going to take a 5-minute break and be back at 3:05. Thank you so much, everybody, for engaging so deeply. And I am pumped to talk more very soon. All right. I believe that the bell tolls for us. Welcome back, everybody. I hope that you had a nice 5 minutes. And now we are going to jump into the back half of this conversation. Also, I know 2 hours is a very long time. So thank you all for continuing to be so engaged and thoughtful. For risks and opportunities, I know we're kicking most of the Q&A to the end. But there's one question that comes up regularly. It's related to the top Q&A question at the moment, and it's also something that was asked in one of the breakout rooms that I hopped into. And I think that I can summarize that question as AI ethics, question mark, question mark, question mark. Like, what do you do when you are trying to do meaningful movement building work for the betterment of the world, and you are operating in an environment where many of the companies are at best not neutral, maybe not aligned with your goals, maybe even actively working against it in some of their philosophy. And particularly there is the environmental component, the electricity you're burning, the water that you are using in every question. And I have this is my personal take on this. I want to be very, very clear. But as someone who has been playing with this technology for a fair amount of time, and who has also been working at the intersection of politics and tech for well over a decade at this point, um, my thought is that we unfortunately don't get to live in a space of moral absolutes. And the most important thing that we can do as organizers, as movement builders, is to be intentional about what we're doing. I think a lot about the example of a grassroots organizer working in a rural district. I'm here in Pittsburgh, PA, in Southwest PA, home of a lot of fracking. A lot of stuff that puts a lot of bad shit into the air. A grassroots organizer may be in my region, who is trying to organize rural communities against fracking. Someone in that case is going to have to do a lot of driving, to go from town to town, sometimes from house to house, to do the work of organizing. That is a circumstance where you have a uh, person who is driving, literally putting carbon dioxide into the atmosphere to organize for uh, putting less carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Does that mean that they are being hypocrites? I don't think so. I think that it means that they are playing the hand that they are dealt. Um, that's something that I think is necessary in the use of all tools, um, uh, particularly in circumstances where a lot of work that we're doing for a lot of communities is existential. Um, I think that the question of water and the environment and stuff like that, you can say that every query you do is marginal, right? Like it's burning only a tiny amount of energy, but that's not satisfying because that's not actually the point, right? Like people are rightly concerned about the environmental costs of using generative AI because we are operating in a context where the people who are benefiting from all of us using these tools are actively working to do a hell of a lot of harm. So, how do you mitigate risks and harms? Um, I really do think that intentionality is kind of the entire ballgame here. Are you doing this? Are you using this technology because it's cool, or are you using this technology because you hope that it will, by using it, make the world better? That's why I go so hard on the idea that you should not throw AI at every problem, but rather you should identify the challenges for which AI is best suited. And in solving those problems, you should focus on where that frees up your time and where you can be doing the work that only humans are best at, which is the work of organizing, of movement building, of relationship building and strategy and organizing and generally being thoughtful. And that's like not a satisfying answer. I know it myself because I am dissatisfied with that answer, but it is the world that we are operating in. And so the most important thing we can do is not lose that intentionality. With that, let's talk about some more risks and some opportunities. And if folks have follow-ups, questions, things like that, I strongly encourage you to put those in the Q&A. So let's talk about risks. There's the big picture risks, but there's also the I blew something up risks of using generative AI, and those tend to fall into three major categories. The first major one is trusting AI too much. These companies are trying to sell you a vision of AI as this perfect, all-knowing thing. It ain't. It can hallucinate, especially when it's operating in contexts where there's not a ton of data, or where the data is biased, or where the outputs themselves are reflecting biases. That is a high risk, and you need to be aware of the circumstances of every single question that you ask these tools, and be appropriately skeptical of the opportunities or of the risks they pose. Next, kind of relatedly, honestly, treating AI as a staff replacement, not staff support. Even as it gets better at doing tasks, that doesn't mean that we have less of a need for people, especially on campaigns and movement building work. It means that you can put people where they are needed most. And just because your, ChatGPT can generate a half decent press release doesn't mean you should fire your comms team. And a lot of people in the corporate world are learning this firsthand and actually having to do a bunch of hiring back of folks that they laid off ostensibly because of the efficiencies of AI. And finally, breaching the privacy or security of the people who have shared their data with you. And this is really about trust. And it also gets to the nature of these systems. I think that we talk more about privacy in a second in the guardrails. So I will save this for a moment, but it's arguably the most important piece. So to make this more helpful, we put together some specific guardrails. The first guardrail: don't put too much trust in AI tools. That is the thing to do. If you're trusting AI too much, don't. Always fact check, always quality check, always check your sources. Even if it says it has a URL, click that URL, make sure it goes somewhere. And don't use AI for functions that have not been pressure tested live, right? If you have not tested, AI, how it works on a critical function in the early days of your campaign, certainly don't test it during crunch time in the boiler room. The bottom line is always keep a human in the loop. Check and approve everything, and build structures that are not predicated on needing AI to be perfect every time. Build resilience into your work in the exact same way that folks who are building regular software workflows expect there to be failure modes. You need to surface the errors, right? Things are going to fail, so make sure they don't fail silently. Just maybe we should skip this in the interest of time, or do you want to dive in here?
I think the only thing that I'll say here is that when you're making decisions with AI that are going to impact people, especially people that you have like power over, if you're a manager or a boss, you should be not just double checking that, but triple checking it. I think there is a lot that could go wrong if you were to use AI to update your employee handbook. For example, it's making recommendations that have legal implications for you at this point. So it's just something to keep in mind to tread lightly.
Yeah, absolutely. Not every suggestion is created equal. Guardrail number 2: there is always bias, and you need to mitigate it. This gets back to the idea that generative AI is a plausibility machine. It is working with data to extrapolate answers, and data is generally produced by people, and people are biased. That means the data will be biased. That means the AI outputs will themselves be biased. An easy thing to pull off the top of my head that could absolutely happen: if you were, I think this is definitely true in the older days, I'm sure it's been mitigated now. If you were to go ask ChatGPT, give me some of the great scientists of all time, it would probably give you a list that is disproportionately white men. Not because white men have done all of the science of all time, but because they get a disproportionate amount of the coverage that appears on the internet. And AI is just a reflection back of the data that it has. So you need to evaluate AI outputs critically in ways big and small related to the bias and the implicit assumptions that go into the work. You should have diverse stakeholders. You should try different tools before landing on one to see if it works. And this is just another reason and another way to be skeptical about the technology that you're getting. Third guardrail: transparently represent how AI was used in materials. This is complicated. It's gotten more complicated over time. There are cases that are obvious, like if you're using AI to generate video or images, you should be very clear that you're using AI in those contexts. Do you need to apply AI, or need to apply a label to like every post for which a first draft was generated by Claude? I would argue the answer is no. This is sort of like a you know it when you see it piece. If there is a reasonable expectation, if people are expecting to be engaging with humans and human work products, then you should not mislead them if you are not using it in that way. I think the most obvious example here is like texting. If you are, there are absolutely ethical and effective ways to use chatbots to communicate with people via text. But if you are giving people that you are texting with the impression that they are speaking with a human, they're actually working with speaking with a chatbot. That actually poses a colossal risk to their perspective on your organization and its credibility. People feeling misled is a really dangerous thing. The next piece that I'll cover, what do you do with all of these things? Sitting on top of it is implement strong AI security practices. And this is where I finally get to the point of why you should be paying for tools rather than using the free versions of these tools. And it comes back to the exact same logic that undergirds social media. And in a word, it is this: if you are not paying for a product, you are the product. Let me repeat that. If you are not paying for the product, you are the product. So why is there a free version of ChatGPT and of Claude and of all of these things? Part of it's to get people interested and to let people play with it. But the other reason is what they are getting out of the free version is they are sucking up your data and they are using it to train their models, the next generation of these tools. And that means if you're putting private information in, it is going to get sucked in, used as training, and potentially spat out at random in the future. Beyond that, so you need to be very careful about private proprietary information. You need to be thoughtful about what sorts of data you put in, where, for what types of tools, and then all the broader software stuff applies. Use multi-factor authentication, and if you are in a position to control who accesses these tools and how, be very careful in using permissions. Next, you're going to want to create an AI, well, not you. There needs to be an AI use policy, by which I mean very clear instructions and guidance on what are acceptable uses of AI for your organization and what aren't. If you are in a position of authority at your organization, it's your job to build this. If you are not in a position of authority, you should absolutely be pushing it. I will say, I believe that it is better to not use technology, or better not to use generative AI at all for an organization than for everybody to be using their own private personal accounts for all of the reasons that I mentioned. Fortunately, there's some really good resources for this. Linked, and I'm sure someone will share this in the chat momentarily, there is a really useful document called the Secure AI Toolkit for campaigns, co-created by Microsoft in defending digital campaigns. It has an entire sample AI use policy specifically for our world. And there are a whole bunch of other really good examples of AI use policies that I highly encourage everybody to go check out. You will find some core themes, like clearly laying out what use cases is appropriate for and not, when you should, like, what sorts of outputs are it's okay to use AI with and not, what sorts of labeling you need to do, things like that. This is one of the most useful, one of the most important things out there when applying this to an advocacy and organizing context. Let me land on the bottom line here. Everything related to generative AI is a work in progress and will always be, especially in campaign and advocacy work, which is always messy, always about empowering people, and never simple. There is not going to be any moment where this is finally solved and you can just go operate. That's the bad news. The good news is we, the people on this call, are empowered to do something about this. Best time to get started is right now. And, you are, by being on this call, contributing to that. So with that risk, let's talk about opportunities. And I am not just talking about use cases here. We've talked about that plenty. My main bottom line here is the point of efficiency, which is what lots of people like to talk about with AI. The point of efficiency is not just maximum efficiency. It is that it frees people up to do things that may have never been possible before. Jess, looks like we've got one more Notebook LM piece here. Do you want to hop in and illustrate what we're talking about?
Yeah, for sure. So if it were the case that I needed to update my employee handbook, that is an extremely time-consuming process. I'm sure a few of us on this call have done that. And going side by side with a handbook and a collective bargaining agreement, it's very tedious and it takes a lot, and there is a lot of room for human error there. So if I were able to save time on an initial draft of a handbook, keeping in mind that I would be completely like there would be a human in the loop at every point, and I would be really checking to make sure that its recommendations were correct and compliant. I would have a legal team look over the handbook as well. The time that I would save would be hours of time, probably 8 or 9 hours of time. That's enough time for me to make a new slide deck to introduce the changes to the staff instead of just sending them the new handbook and saying, here's this. I could make a slideshow that would tell them exactly what's changed, what the new policies are. I could also provide additional professional development for managers that I wouldn't be able to provide otherwise, not only preparing them to answer questions from their staff so that they're ready, but also letting them know why the changes were made, how they were made, giving them kind of a little bit of insight into that. And hopefully then I could also hold a few office hours to support staff so that they could come and have one-on-one support to answer questions. And as a bonus of all of this, if I had Notebook LM, I could put the new handbook and the collective bargaining agreement, maybe a staff schedule, maybe a communication policy, maybe a few additional things into a notebook hub where people could just ask questions when they had them come up. Instead of slacking me, hey, do we have Memorial Day off? They could ask the bot, do we have Memorial Day off? And then it could tell them, yes, and here's the policy that says that. Or maybe they have a conflict with a coworker, but they're not really sure if they should escalate it or not. This is kind of an anonymous place for them to ask questions about what the policies are in their situation. And then it can tell them, now you should talk to Jess, or now you should talk to someone else on your team, escalate this to your manager, kind of thing. So these are just like one thing that we could do that could help, open up possibilities for staff that we didn't have before. But I think there's also a really cool example. I know that there are folks who are using AI to kind of analyze voice memos. So after canvassing conversations, they'll have their canvasser record a voice memo about how the conversation went. And then that qualitative data can become something that is able to be analyzed. You don't have to have a human coder go through and assign tags to it anymore. The AI can do that. So there's some really cool, exciting things that unlock a lot of the things that we want to do. Because like when you're running a campus program, you really want to. Mute patrol. We got someone off mute. Mute patrol's coming for you. When you're doing this kind of like person-to-person work, there is a lot of qualitative data that gets lost when we're just reducing conversations to their survey questions. So there are exciting ways that we can deepen our engagement with people as well. I'll pass it back to you, Ben. That was a lot.
No, it was awesome. So our second and final hands-on piece, I want to sort of dig into this further and do a visioning exercise. We spent some time thinking about specific workflows where AI could make your life easier right now. Let's assume for a moment that we've implemented those things. What does your life look like now? A question that I love asking wearing my product manager hat. I've been a product manager in the past. Is if you could wave a magic wand and solve one problem, what would it be? I would say that we spent the first breakout waving our magic wand, and now it's waved. What do you want to do? What are the things in the middle of your to-do list that are not, unimportant, not absolute top importance, but things that would make all of your life, your work easier or better if you actually magically had the time to do them. So I believe that we are going to break further in to our breakout groups and chat for Jess or Deborah. Do you know how long we're going to have to talk?
I think we have the full time for this one. So we have let's do 15 minutes because I think we have a bunch of questions in the Q&A, maybe more than
Cool.
we allocated. So we'll do 15 here.
Okay, so at 40 minutes past the hour or so, let's all come back. And I will let the Zoom wizards make the breakout groups happen.
Thanks, Ben. So these breakout rooms are going to look a little different. You're going to choose which room you go to. So I'm going to click open rooms. You're not going to automatically move to a room, but you can now go look at your breakout room panel. If you don't see that on your Zoom menu right now, you might need to click the three dots that say more. It's where you found the Q&A. It's where you would screen share. In that more breakout room panel, you can see a room. You can see how many people are in that room. You can click join next to that room. And you can go ahead and head there. We will screen share this to the breakout rooms as well. Go ahead and go. If you're having issues though, we'll be here and we can help assign you. So put in chat or come off mute if you know which room you want to go to. Anything, Jess, to add?
Do it up. Thanks, wizards.
And I am watching that chat for anyone who needs assistance. All right, Ben, I'm going to take over your screen share momentarily, unless you'd like to screen share to
Nope, I'm going to hit stop share.
Okay.
Man, no one's in the finance room. Well, one person is in the finance room, which is maybe worse than no one being in the finance room.
If anyone here wants to go to the finance room and can't is struggling, we can help you. Eli or Ellie, which room do you want to go to? We can move you. Finance. Amazing. Okay. You are going there. Hopefully the person that's still in there stays. Yeah. I'm working on it, Eli.
Okay.
Struggling.
Oh
now.
no. Okay, more people are in there. Okay, great. We did it.
Can I do finance too? I don't see where I
Yes.
can add rooms.
Who's speaking?
Allison.
Okay, amazing. Sending you there now. Okay, and Isaiah, we got you. Is anyone else who's still in here struggling to find your room? You are welcome to hang out with us. But hey, Ann, how's it going?
It's Anne, and my mute kept going back and forth. It's just apparently I use too much AI, and it's made my old phone rather ill.
Classic.
Yeah.
Do you know which room you'd like to go to?
Well, I am the campaign treasurer, so so that might put me in that very elite finance room.
Perfect. I'll send you there.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, let's see.
There was no one in my breakout room, so I just came back to the main room.
Sorry to hear.
It's okay. I'm good. I'm good.
Do you want to find another room or do you want to hang out here with us?
I'll just hang out. It's
Cool.
good.
Great.
Unless y'all had state secrets that you were going to talk about, then
No, mostly just banter. Is anyone who's in here struggling to get to a room? You can drop it in the chat where you want to go or come off mute. Okay, we'll be here. We have about 10 minutes left in the breakout room.
Can somebody pause the recording if it's not already?
But if you want to move.
We have like 10 minutes for, well, let's see. Let me not go that far. I think we have like 5 minutes for debrief and then probably 10 for Q&A. But if we go a little bit over on debrief, I think it'll be all right.
Cool. Well, are we ready to roll? Should we just start the conversation?
Not everyone is back quite. Okay, now everyone's back.
Okay, cool. Hello, everybody. Hope those were great. I would love to hear how those conversations went. Let's debrief in the same way we did the first time. If you have anything to share about the conversations that surfaced during your conversation, or the themes that came up during your conversation, stuff that's particularly interesting, please raise your hand, and we will dig into it.
I think maybe Eric was hoping to share last time and didn't get to. So Eric, if you want to start, you're
Eric,
welcome to.
floor is yours.
Yeah, I kind of tossed it in the chat. It wasn't necessarily relevant to the last conversation, so I don't want to bring it up. But it was just kind of the discussion of like how to utilize it, like essentially the the moral quandary that's been discussed about using AI, people who are kind of like skeptical, and then the people who see its use case on a daily basis. Especially when it comes to kind of like sorting through like a whole bunch of data and doing so in a manner that can save them time in order to do some of the other responsibilities in their day versus like trying to do like specific messaging for like members, if you're a member-based organization, or just the general public, which may require a little bit more nuance, in which AI may not be as helpful, because it may need that kind of personal touch. And we talked about sometimes that it can be lacking in that realm. So that was what was discussed in the previous discussion that I had, not necessarily this one. So.
Right on. Did any of that sort of thematically carry through to the conversation you were having this time in terms of, spending your time on what's the most helpful for people to be working on?
I was in kind of the campaigns group, and some were actual candidates are working on like campaigns during this election cycle, and I'm not, so I kind of just stayed back in the discussion. So.
Okay. Word. Does anybody from that group want to raise their hand and share what y'all talked about? Grace, floor is yours.
Hi. Yes, we were this last iteration was talking about the conflict between diving into AI and data centers. And since I'm in Virginia, I figured I would chime in because we have the largest concentration of data centers in the world. Even though Spanberger is a part of the thing. So I kind of look at it as AI is a skill that people have to know. And there are alternative ways that the Biden administration had gone, with the infrastructure bill, putting a lot of funding into alternative energy to fuel it. Like we have like over $1 billion project with mobile wind, and that got canceled by the Trump administration. So I think, I mean, I don't know, but anyway, that was something that people were talking about.
Right on. One thing that's worth pulling out here, I think, in terms of visioning, is it is just the current state of AI is not the state that it always has to be. And here I think of the book Empire of AI, by I think Karen Howe is her name. Her last name is Howe, I know.
That's right.
Anyway, there are lots of really good examples of how this can be used ethically to grow and support communities. The one that she closes the book with is a bunch of native Maori folks in New Zealand worked with subject matter experts to build a large language model that is fluent in Maori, and were able to use this technology to preserve their culture in a way that was collaborative, in a way that was seeking permission for the sort of data that was used and how it was used. Just because it is currently governed by plutocrats does not mean that it always has to be. And part of our work can be imagining what it looks like for this very powerful technology to be aligned with our our ethics and mission and goals, and not just tolerated by it. I see our very own Deborah Cohen has her hand raised. Can I toss it to you?
Yeah, thanks, Ben. I do not remember who was in the digital room with me. I am so sorry. Please speak up if you have more to add. But folks were sharing about using um, taking transcripts from Adobe Premiere or other tools that are transcribing like video footage you have and putting it into the an LLM to have it suggest where you make edits um, in a video. But someone also shared that the bot hallucinated and suggested like an incredible video script that didn't actually exist in the transcript. So I think that the tech has gotten a little bit better, and there's also like some things you can do to coach it not to hallucinate or like yell at it. But I think there's some potential there to, because I think anyone who's had to make videos or like I think I was excited about that because you're not actually like putting the video in or having it edit the video, but it's like helping you kind of sift through something that can be super time consuming. I think there's probably also some like potentials there for press clips and kind of just sifting through like a lot of like things that you can listen to on 2.5 speed or something. But like, how do you kind of like make sense of a lot of footage you have? So I was
Yeah.
excited about that. But I don't know if anyone who's in that room or I'm sorry, I forget your name, who was sharing that, wants to jump in and share either your pros or cons in that experience.
Yeah. In the meantime, I'll just say that this gets into the broad world of specialized tools that use AI to make stuff a lot easier. Video production is a really good example. Clipping is another. There are tools out there. Clipbook is the prominent example in our space. There are very specific time-consuming tasks that are specialized, and you can build. The AI is not necessarily better, but honestly, it's the user interface that is built for a specific use case that can be really powerful. I think we're going to spend about 2 more minutes on Q&A. And Santiago, I see you have your hand raised. Do you think you can give us one more with a hard stop at 50 minutes past the hour?
Confidently. In the data room, folks are talking about sort of just evaluating different tasks, even things as simple as like coordinating postcards and lists and trying to figure out like, is there a way that AI could be useful, or is there, other simpler ways of solving those problems with, something like a spreadsheet, or, sort of just trying to coordinate large groups of volunteers. And then I think there was a really good discussion that we started to have that we got sort of cut off, but started talking about sort of the application of AI in data spaces, especially when our teams have disparate views of the application of AI, hesitancy versus folks who are all in, and the types of code that AI will produce. Is that always the most logical? Is it the most straightforward way? And how does that inhibit some of the collaboration that folks can have on larger data teams? But what are some of the possibilities that could possibly be opened up for teams that don't have a lot of data capacity? So just starting to scratch the surface on some of those questions and what different applications could look like in the data space.
Love that. Yeah, the two things that I would pull out of that are both flying out of my brain as I speak. That's annoying. But no, those are definitely the right conversations. The answer is it will continue to evolve over time. And yeah, the one thing I was going to say is it's worth remembering that a lot of campaign and advocacy work is just copying and pasting stuff from one spreadsheet to another. So anything that makes that work easier means more time for valuable work. And the other is data is a particularly strong use case for this because SQL, server query language, it's a lot smaller than like the English language, which means that it is going to be easier for a machine to master. So definitely stuff to explore there. I see that we are now at 10 minutes till. Thank you all so much for that debrief. Really, really fascinating stuff, and I encourage you to continue to share what you're doing with each other. And with that, I think we're going to do a quick key takeaways poll, and then we'll save the rest of the time for Q&A. So is there a poll to pull up here?
Can we save our key takeaways for the debrief
We
survey?
sure can. Absolutely. So we're going to skip that. Key takeaways, it's powerful. We're going to iterate. balance opportunity with responsibility. We're building the future together. All of this is stuff that we have covered well, and we will cover after the fact. With that, there's a survey, and I am going to hand over the mic, or rather, I'm going to move over to the Q&A section, and we will spend the remainder of our time. Q&A, if you have a Q you would like aid, it is on your bottom button set. If you don't immediately see it, it might be under the More button. So I'm just going to run through in order of what has the most upvotes. First, most upvoted, congratulations, Robert Cotty asks, one, I recommended Claude and Gemini. What's the reasoning behind that? And the second question, I'll start with that first piece. I actually don't recommend any specific large language model. I think that it would be more valuable to think about sort of the different tiers of model. ChatGPT, Gemini by Claude, or Gemini by Google, Anthropic, Claude, and ChatGPT. These are all what's known as frontier models, which means they are at the cutting edge of whatever a large language model can do. Whatever it can currently do, those models are generally the best. And the simple reason is they have the most money and the most resources to pull into making it the best. It also they tend to have the most diverse functionalities. Claude Code, for example, OpenAI used to have Sora, which was image generation. It's really about like the money that has been put into making those tools as good as possible. The second tier are sort of the other labs that are trying to make it work. Mistral is a good example. Let's see, we've got a poll up, so cool. There's a number, and then the third is open models, which you can download, host locally sometimes, and they're not being hosted on someone else's servers. So the long story short is there is a direct line between the size of the company and the capability of the model, and that kind of sucks, but it also is the way it is. Also asked, if we've built a long history in a specific LLM, what are the best practices in moving that memory to another LLM? Two things come to mind here. One, most of the frontier models have something that is called memory, which is sort of the little factoids about your preferences and details that it has saved. As a reference, you can usually find ways to access those. Also, really interesting and useful to simply ask the model, what have you learned about me in my preferences, right? Or if you do have a long history on a specific topic, you can ask it to find all of the chats on that topic that are saved and consolidate them all into a memo, for example, that you can bring to another model. Hope that is helpful. Moving on in the interest of time. Also about recommendations, Heidi asks, do you recommend using Sonnet over Opus? I used Opus medium effort, was actually a lot less detailed. Yeah, this gets to another big question. What are these different models? Opus, Sonnet, Haiku, whatever the hell ChatGPT names its models. What is the difference between all of those? Two pieces. One, all of the models at a given tier are generally very broadly speaking the same in terms of the things that they can do. The difference between Sonnet and Opus, for example, is essentially the amount of effort that it puts in to answering a question, the amount of complexity and nuance it can engage with. And it's really like you are trading off between what the quality of an answer and how expensive it is, literally and figuratively, in terms of like the number crunching that it does in producing your answer. So when should you use one versus the other? It's really, you should be using things like Opus for more complex tasks or tasks that require more nuance. Coding is an example. And you should use Sonnet or Haiku for things that are lighter lift. For example, writing a fundraising email right now is easy. If you're writing a lot of fundraising emails and you are trying to get the most out of your subscription, you can use Haiku. If you use Sonnet, it's going to be a bit better. If you use Opus, it's going to be a bit better than that. The question is like the marginal value. Um, Don added an addendum to that question. Do you have any recommendations on how to use each model in the various tools? This is basically the same. Like, they are all functionally the same in terms of what they can do. It is a question of the amount of crunching, the amount of effort, the quality of the answers, and like the point here sort of is you don't always need or want maximum quality. If you're creating a draft of something, you don't need to put, all of the resources of $1 trillion company onto writing your fundraising email. The marginal difference between the highest and the lowest quality that is available within a given model, oftentimes it's not going to be massively different, depending on the task. But I encourage you to try the same task on multiple different levels and see what the sweet spot is for you and your needs. Moving down, Mark asked, do you really need to avoid politics? To what extent would we be able to create a campaign consultant agent to assist with the campaign? Yeah, this is in reference to earlier on in the example I used. I said I was an organizer, not a campaign consultant. I was being a little bit glib, but this sort of points to how incredibly arbitrary all of these models are in what you are allowed to say and not. And this is the same problem as social media. Could I have said I'm the campaign manager in Georgia 2 and gotten a good answer? Yeah, it would have almost certainly been fine. But there is something called refusal, where a model can refuse to answer a question. And more importantly, if you all remember, like, how incredibly all over the place Meta has been in what sorts of advertisements, political advertisements, it's allowed in the past at different points of different cycles. That's kind of the case here too. The trade-off of using a frontier model where it's not happening there, or rather it's not happening on your own machine, is they have the ability to refuse. Jess, I see your hand is up. Let me pass it to you.
Yes, just a little housekeeping. We have only a few minutes left. Please don't leave yet. We have one Zoom question for you. It's the same one that you answered in Mobilize. And then we have a feedback survey, which we are dropping in the chat. Please help us understand how this hit for you. If you would love to answer the Zoom survey, we would love to read it. And then the feedback survey, you can do it anonymously if you so choose. So please fill that out, and we are going to send this to you in an email. You'll get the recording, and you will get the slides, and you will get the links that we've dropped in the chat today. So very appreciative. And I think we have time for one more question, Ben, if you want to answer one.
Cool. Yes. This seems like a good one to end on. Noelle asks, do you double check the numbers that AI gives you? Do you check with another AI for the right numbers? Yeah, the bottom line is you always need to double check outputs. You should not assume that they are good, but does that mean you need to double check every single number every single time? In a perfect world, yes. Realistically, that's not feasible. So the better thing to do is, has it generally gotten answers like this correct before? The more times it's gotten it correct, in similar use cases, generally the more comfortable you can be. But like a person, it's going to be wrong occasionally. Unlike a person, it's going to be equally confident every time. So the more important something is to get right, one, the more checking you need to do, and two, the more you need to build up systems that are either fault tolerant, they can handle failure, or they flag when they are not certain. These are things that you can do with your system. With that, we are at time. Boy, we've done a lot of talking, and it seems like folks are generally pretty happy with using AI. So let me just say thank you all so much for spending 2 entire hours with me on a Thursday afternoon. I had fun. I hope you all had fun. I wish you all the very, very best on your journeys, and keep doing great stuff with Arena. And looking forward to seeing all the cool stuff that you all continue to do.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ben. We really appreciate you spending your time and sharing your expertise with us as well. If you would like to connect with Ben on LinkedIn, of all places, Ben's LinkedIn is at the top of your handout, so you can click that connect with Ben button. Also at the top of your handout is a link to the survey, which is in the chat too. And we're going to email it out too. We're going to chase you. We'd love to hear how it went. We love your feedback. We've already iterated so much on this session from the first time to the second time that we've run it. It's been completely changed. And we will keep iterating. So give us your feedback. We appreciate it. We're 1 minute over. Thanks for hanging out with us. End call. We can stop the recording.